Guys, I know this is an extremely taxing time for a lot of us who are in India. We just wanted to begin this episode and say, hope all your loved ones, your friends, your families, your teams, I don't know, and just you yourself are safe and well, and our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone out there.
Yeah, man, it's been a rough time, and I guess one good thing is we've got the music still. So, yeah, let's do what we do best.
Welcome to Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And on today's episode, we are firing up our rant-e-nasha. Haha, bhayanak mont joke.
I wonder if those guys hear it and what they have to say about it. Honestly.
We can bombard them and send them this episode because I'm pretty sure they'll want to listen to it. Because on this episode, we are celebrating, or rather remembering, an album released 20 years ago in the hot summer of May 2001. And yes, if you read the show descriptor, you'd know that album is Lateralus. I don't know. How do you pronounce it, Peter?
Lateralus. Now you got me tongue tied. But yeah, Lateralus. That's how I would say it.
Okay. By the one and only band Tool. Peter.
Tool. I know everyone's gonna laugh and be like, "What? These guys are talking about Tool again?" But damn right we are.
Yep. Are you ready to do this? I mean,
Let's just get into it. Don't repeat the question, Animesh.
Cool.
We have to do this.
Alrighty, cool. So let's talk Lateralus by spewing a couple of facts about the album first. It's only the third studio album by the American band, and it follows their debut Undertow that was released in 1993 and the second album Enema that was released in 1996. That makes Lateralus the first Tool album in nearly 5 years. That's an important point to remember.
The band stays the same. You've got Maynard James Keenan on vocals, Adam Jones on guitar, Justin Chancellor on bass, and of course, everyone's favorite, Danny Carey on drums. Now, we're not getting into the details about when the album was recorded and produced, or I'm sure everyone has read about the legal dispute the band had with its label at that time, or about Systema Encephal, the alleged name of the album that was leaked on P2P sites and was a red herring. Those are facts you can read anywhere off the internet.
Yes, so why bother spending time on those facts? This is going to be a different fun episode because, yes, it's going to be a lot of opinion. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Listeners of Horns Up would know that we've already spent a lot of time since we started yapping about metal on this podcast in December 2018. And we spent that time talking about Tool. We've dissected and discussed Fear Inoculum. We've shared stories about Tool's concerts. It's a band that keeps popping up, like it's popped up as references so many times. And most importantly, on an episode of Metal or Not, we've said and declared that Tool is not a metal band. So then, Peter, why are we still talking Lateralus?
I was thinking about this last night, and let's put into context when this album was released, right? 2001. 2001 was a very different year in metal. Just think of all the releases that came out that year. And of course, Tool will, like, at least in mainstream metal, let's put it that way, not like the underground and all of that. And definitely Tool will stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, you had new metal just coming to the fore in there. Look at all the top selling albums that year. And we've talked about this quite a bit. But when you take that aside also, it's been 5 years since Tool has released an album. This is like, I feel the album that kind of put I feel this album is the one that pushed Tool from people like Tool to people love Tool. And you went from a casual fan all the way to, like, an obsessive fan looking up like each and every detail in there.
Hmm.
And of course, remember, this is the time where the internet was still like, at least in India, for us in the infancy, in that stages, right? I think I was using still dial-up internet. But yeah, one thing, I was listening back to our last episode where we talked about, at least, or about fear inoculum, and I completely agree with what we said then, is that every Tool album is like a progression. And when you listen to Anima and then come into Lateralus, you see that. And then, of course, you had to wait some time again for 10,000 days, but there's that progression in there. What
Yeah,
about you, Animesh?
yeah. No, I get what you're saying, and the only opinion I have on this, or to try and justify why we are discussing Lateralus, is, remember at the very beginning I said that the years of release, or the fact that this is Tool's third album, is an important point to remember. And if you've heard Undertow and Anima, a case can definitely be made that those are metal albums or alternative metal albums. If you consider Rage Against the Machine to be metal, then Tool should be metal, right? Especially when you listen to Undertow and Anima. So, considering this was the album that follows Anima, everybody was expecting it to be a metal album, and um, whatever way it turned out, there's a lot of opinion and that can categorize this album Literalis as a metal album. So yeah, and plus, of course, for whatever it's worth, it's our podcast. So if you want to fucking discuss Tool Literalis, we will discuss Tool Literalis. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the listeners, or just whoever it is that actually listens to this, would want to weigh in on this kind of a discussion too. It's
Yeah.
that popular an album. It's an album that metalheads love or like to listen to, or have definitely heard at some point in time, because of the hype or because of whatever else. And yes, it deserves a place on Horns Up only on that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, like, just not to dwell too much on this, but I remember reading something online which says there are only two types of Tool fans. Either you're a casual fan or you're an obsessive fan.
I've never met a casual fan of Tool.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll be discussing that aspect certainly. So, next big question, Peter, was Lateralus your first Tool album, or simply what was your exposure to Tool before you spun Lateralus?
So, like I said on the Fear Inoculum episode that we did, I actually heard 10,000 Days first, and I heard it as a pirate. So, not going to dwell into that. But I did, make up for it by buying the CD. Uh, but yeah, so like I got into it. I think that was the time where it was again like, oh my God, Tool. And it was all around. I think even like on the RSJ forums and GigPad and all of that back then, everyone was like, had these raging hard-ons for Tool back then. There's no other way to put it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, so like then I remember, and this is very funny also, because soon after the album released, I remember there was a store in Abu Dhabi I used to frequent, a music store, and they had like always like a bargain section where you could buy albums on sale.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found Lateralus, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, this is cool artwork. So I'm like, I have to buy it. And it was really cheap. Like, it was like a no-brainer for me. And then I saw, I think, Undertow.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, two Tool CDs in this section. Like, I'm not even thinking that. So for
You
me, it
are
was like,
blessed.
yeah, I was like, this is a major score day. Like, I'm like really happy. But yeah, so that's when I think I spent a lot of time listening both to Lateralus and Undertow. And then later, of course, I picked up Enema also. So this was my CD spinning days. But that's enough about me. What about you, Animesh?
Yeah, I pretty much like got into Tool around the same time that you would have, the early 2000s. I think it was just after Lateralus had released, but of course, um, I didn't hear of it in 2001. I probably heard of it a couple of years later. Um, the hype around Lateralus and that entire fucking Fibonacci connection, etc., right?
Oh,
That
we're
is what
talking about
actually.
it already,
No, 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 no.
yeah.
Because no, yeah, we were talking about it already because that was my connection into Tool. I'm a huge like sacred geometry guy, right? So I the movie Pi, reading about it online. I spent an inordinate amount of time just just reading about stuff online, right? Especially sacred geometry. And then I read this. Of course, somebody linked me to that infamous uh, page which had that lovely theory about this album that supposedly constructed scientifically and follows the principles of sacred geometry to construct music. And I was like, oh my God, is this really uh,
But you know the
God's
thing,
answer to mankind? Oh,
and see,
so wait, no, let me finish the story. So that's, of course, that is what led me to play Lateralus and then play Schism. And I was like, oh my God, what is this music? And so naturally, like every other kid with an internet connection, I downloaded Undertow, I downloaded Anima, and I downloaded Lateralus. Weirdly, though, as an album, I ended up hearing Anima first. And I didn't know whether I really enjoyed it at first listen because it was weird. I hadn't heard um, I enjoyed some of the songs I had, but I didn't enjoy the way the album was laid out. There were weird samples that didn't make sense, etc., etc. So I said, okay, cool. Maybe now, like I think I did that to maybe lower my expectations with Lateralus, and then I
okay.
heard Lateralus, and maybe it was the hype or maybe what, but I was like, dude, this is fucking amazing. And then of course, you know, you got the tracks and you took them through Audacity. You did as was told in the Bible. You rearranged it. You rearranged the tracks, and then you gave yourself the golden spiral experience, or whatever it's called, the divine experience of the album. And oh man, yeah, we'll get into those aspects when we are discussing the music,
But you know what?
definitely.
The thing is, the band, like I was reading, were really mysterious at that time, right? So that
Yeah,
added to it also. So like they're not talking about it. So of course everyone's going to lose their marbles, like going like, "Oh my
yeah.
god, what are
The
they
fact that there are
doing?"
no lyrics printed, the fact that there are no official confirmed lyrics, the fact that in their interviews they allude to it, but they never confirm, neither deny it.
Yeah, except
Wow.
except Joe Rogan's podcast.
I haven't heard it yet, but yeah, it, I mean, it, I'll come into that aspect again a bit later as to when I realized that all of this was probably just a gimmick, and I don't know if I was just played at. I whatever, man. Like that is one aspect that we'll definitely talk about later after we discuss the music. Because first and foremost, let's try and just dive into the music and kind of opine about Lateralus as objectively as we can. But we're not going to be doing this our normal way where we, you know, pick out parts and talk about them and try and analyze why songwriting works and stuff. We're just going to opine a lot and we'll consider those as subjective thoughts. So, Lateralus, coming back to it, it's a long fucking listen. It clocks
Yeah,
in at 78 minutes, 51 seconds. If you're listening to it on CD, if you're listening to it on streaming, which you could only officially do starting a couple of years back, it clocks
yeah.
in at only around 71 minutes. So there's around 7 minutes of dead space that the CD occupies, which makes it more fun actually. Um, that amount of time is split between 13 tracks, out of which 10 should be considered as proper songs, and the remaining 3 are interludes, samples, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So let's quickly ruminate over the songs, beginning with, and we'll be, of course, just following the track order. We're beginning with The
The official
Grudge.
one.
Yeah, the official one, the one that's on the CD and on streaming, etc. Right? Yeah. Uh, the album begins with a song called The Grudge, which opens very weirdly with this sound of, I don't know, a sample of a cassette being popped into a deck or a machine starting to whir. I, I don't know, but that was always interesting for me, especially when you listen to it on headphones, right?
Yeah.
And then the song starts, and yeah, it's okay. It's weird, of course, like if you've not heard this kind of music before. But like for me, the only part where it really picks up steam is when the chorus hits, and then eventually when it really begins to get heavy, and then you have that fantastic um, highlight of the song, which is that extended growl or scream by Maynard, which lasts like what, for around 40 seconds or so.
Yeah. I was just like, how did he do that?
How did he
Like,
do that, right? Yeah, how did he do that? That goes to show his talent.
yeah.
And I don't know how many of you out there have tried to sing along to that particular part. I know this is a terrible joke, but that's a lovely way to kind of measure your lung output.
It's, oh God, I'm going to hell. but you know what? I'm going to throw this to you. Since you're a bass player, right?
Uh-huh.
You can't deny it. Like
Oh,
the
fucking
bass.
hell.
What,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts, honestly, when you first time heard it? What, like when you heard it, were you already learning bass?
Yeah, I was, but I wasn't like I wasn't deep rooted into it and stuff. But I do remember. So I'll come into this again with another aspect, right? From Lateralus, the first couple of songs that I heard were Schism,
Yeah.
and then Lateralus, and then Parabola.
Yeah.
And after that is when I decided to, okay, let's listen to the entire album, right? So the finesse of bass on Schism and Lateralus, etc., right? It had already set me up to expect really good bass lines and really good bass tone, and just how to use bass as not just I'm going to be the rhythm and just hold everything together and just color along the dotted lines and let the guitarist take over, because that's what generally happens in metal,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But instead, here was a bass player who was not only doing that role, but at the same time making sure that his skill was being showcased at some level, right? And that's something that I really like about this entire album and about the band, that everything is mixed so well together that everything just balances each other. That's something that didn't happen in Fear Inoculum in the first
Yeah.
couple of listens, right? Because Danny Carey's performance just blew everyone else's performance away. Uh, but on Lateralus, everything just complements each other. And if you're a bass player, obviously the bass lines will stand out because they are fucking amazing. And right off the bat, even from The Grudge, you can definitely say that. Peter, your thoughts on The Grudge?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, so for me, that bass intro, I was like, whoa, because like you said, right, in metal, you don't really have a lot of bass getting prominence or bass in general getting prominence in it. And then you have the drums in there. So that kind of kicks in. Uh, of course, the highlight for me also was that scream by or growl, whatever you want to call it, by Maynard. I'm not gonna lie. Of course, there's a few times I've always tried to like emulate it while singing along on headphones, failed miserably. But yeah, it's a strong. I mean, like it's weird, right? When you hear the song for the first time, but on repeated listens, like you just get used to it, and I think that's
Yeah,
what happens. Uh,
it's what I'd also like to say is, after having heard Undertow and Anima, like if you're a traditional, not traditional, but if you're stuck up in the way that you have to listen to a band's output in the proper order, right? and if you're exposing yourself to music that way, um, the grudge definitely signals that this is a different tool. It's not the tool that you had heard on Enema or on Undertow, right? There is something arty that's going on with this song, and it kind of sets you up for the next phase of Tool's career as such, without and it kind of sets up what you're in store for the entire album.
Yeah. So, having said that, let's jump into the next track, which is Eon Blue Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's an interlude, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I
And
think I think we should take the interlude and the song together.
okay, so you've got Eon Blue Apocalypse followed by The Patient. And I kind of
What
like,
animal is on Eon Blue Apocalypse? Did you ever figure it out?
I don't know, dude. I don't. It's like it's very weird. Like when I was listening to it now again, like getting prepped for this, I was like, okay. And the thing about the mystery of the band, there's nothing online, so you're just trying to figure out like what is the instrument. Even like on the patient, like in the first minute, what is that instrument in the opening?
Yeah.
But
What do you think about Eon Blue Apocalypse and The Patient as songs, especially when they come in following The Grudge?
I mean, I really enjoy like at this point on the patient, you get to see like the guitar work and just like how it kind of builds up slowly, and just goes on rhythmic, and that it kind of leaves you. So like for me, Tool has always been that band that you have to listen to like all the songs of the entire album at once. You can't listen to like one song and that's it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of works, I guess, for me, because I've not done the whole resequencing of the album and all. But yeah, I mean, it in a way, like what I feel sometimes, it kind of leaves you into that meditative or like kinds of build you up into that state. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So the internet says that Eon Blue Apocalypse is supposed to be a song that's written in the memory of or as a tribute by guitarist Adam Jones for his Great Dane. Okay, cool. Whatever, right? That's all I'll say about that. It acts as a very good segue of sorts, like kind of cleanses your palate and preps you up for the patient. It does a great job of that. And then the patient, it's it's a great song, but it's not one of the highlights of the album for me. I just heard the album around an hour back, and I can't remember the patient right now as to what the tune is or what the melody is or what the harmony is or anything of that sort. And I don't know if that's just my state of mind at the moment and I have terrible short term memory, or if it's because there's nothing remarkable on the track that truly stands out. Um,
Tool
Yay,
fanboys are
two
coming at
fanboys
us.
are going to fucking kill me. So, yeah, that's what I think about the patient. Let's move on quickly to
All right.
the next songs, which are Mantra, which is again an interlude, which sets up probably Tool's most famous song at this point. I'm not,
I
I don't
actually
know.
looked this up. This is, if you go on Spotify, it's their most listened to song on
I'm not
Spotify.
surprised,
Yeah.
right? This is the song that I think is the first, like if you type Tool on YouTube, I think this is the first result. So naturally, a lot of people would be discovering Tool this way. And the song, of course, that we're talking about is Schism. Mantra does a beautiful job of setting Schism up.
Yeah.
Okay, again, the one thing, like, though the interludes on Enema on first listen kind of spooked me out and had me wondering what the fuck, on this album, all the interludes kind of work, right? They
True.
do their jobs perfectly. So Mantra sets up Schism perfectly. And I don't know if I can really add on to any of the opinions you might read online about how good of a song Schism is, because it's got this X factor quality in it, or the it factor in it, which makes you want to, which will get the song stuck in your head without a hook. There isn't a hook as such on Schism, right? So
Yeah.
there isn't like a, like, I don't know, fuck, I don't know why I'm comparing this to, or why Skater Boy from Avril Lavigne just popped in my head when I said hook, right? So it doesn't have hooks like that in the conventional sense, but just the opening bass line, the way the drums come in, of course, the weird ass time signatures that are happening throughout. You can't, you don't know if you're supposed to bop your head to it at one particular tempo. You can bop your head to it in different ways, etc. That weird ass music video, which is, I don't know what Adam Jones was thinking about when he did that, but yeah. Um, the lyrics, you can pour over them, you can get into them. It's like poetry. It holds a meaning for everybody. It's like great art. It makes you think, it makes you ponder. It's a fucking great song, and I'm not surprised that it is the most listened to song by Tool on Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, like, the lyrics say, right, the pieces fit
Yeah,
towards the end. And that's the thing, like, the whole song kind of builds up very, like, weird. And then towards the end, everything kind of locks in on the intro. And that for me was like, wow, like, okay. And, coming in where it is in the album, I understand why people want to rearrange it and stuff like that. But like when you listen to it, like by then when you reach the album, you're kind of primed up and ready for this song. So you're like, okay, give it
yeah.
to me, kind of
It's
thing.
the first. It's the first like literal home run,
Yeah.
or the first IPL six, if you watch IPL. But it's a six that doesn't just cross the boundary line. It's a six that fucking gets knocked out of the stadium, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's probably like it's hit so well that it goes into the stratosphere and is responsible for the, apparently there's a Chinese satellite that got destroyed and is falling down on Earth. Have you heard that?
Yeah,
Have you heard
I
about
read it.
that news? Yeah, so
I
it's probably Tool hitting this six and the ball that goes and reaches up into the stratosphere and is responsible for that satellite. Okay, no, I'm just spinning yarns now, but um, essentially what I'm trying to say is this song is a hit, and I'm
Yeah.
not surprised that this song was the lead single from this album too, right?
Yeah, true. Definitely. 100% on board. Let's jump into the next two tracks, which is Parabola. Who's
Why
going
are we
first?
considering them as two tracks, and like why are we taking them together and not as, separate tracks?
I feel like, so the two ways I can kind of put it. They fit in so well, right? And I can't, like, I've never heard only one of those.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's one of those song pairs, or just such a like it should ideally have been maybe Parabole Part 1, Parabole Part 2, Parabola, or something of that sort. You have to listen to one and the other. You can't only listen to Parabola, and you
Yeah.
can't only listen to Parabole either. They are both two sides of the same coin, as
So
such, right?
so here's my I guess it's been a while since I've done a Raz reference. So here's my Raz reference after a while. I'm pretty sure you might have been at this gig if I was there. But there was an Indian band, Bombay-based band, that tried to cover it or attempted to cover both these tracks at Raz once. And yeah, let's just say they didn't really do a good job. So
I'm forgetting the name of this band.
but yeah, like it's kept in the deep recesses of my brain as a memory in there. But
Only the performance of the name of the band. Come on, spill it, man, Peter.
no, no.
Eggless love cake? No.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Fuck. I don't know why I just remembered that, but yeah. I remembered them as a band that would try and attempt Tool at that time. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
Oh yeah, you
just
fucking can't cover Tool, man. Like unless you, I don't know, unless like you need to have Hamza on drums to cover Tool.
yeah. So it was Hamza on drums, by the way.
I know, but like, Hamza at that time versus where Hamza has reached. Shout out to
True.
Hamza for people who don't know who the fuck we're talking about. He's one of the most accomplished drummers in the Indian scene
Yeah.
and a huge Tool fanboy.
Yeah. So, but uh, I mean, with this song, you can't kind of head like not dive into the lyrics, right? Because you've got
Yeah, it
the
forces you to
parable.
listen to it,
Yeah, where
right?
thanks to the internet now we have the lyrics to read, and like when you read the part where it says like this body makes me feel eternal, all this pain is an illusion. I think a lot of people had this as a status on MSN back in the day. Uh,
That's a great point, right? There are so many lyrics of this entire album which people would post on their blogs. I know I've done it
yeah,
on Orkut, on MySpace, and then eventually on Facebook and
yeah.
Twitter and stuff where you're
But
just like, yeah.
but for me, right, the highlight is those last couple of seconds where like parable is kind of building up, and
Hmm.
this is like why I'm glad at least. So I'm going to go into the CD I bought. Normally, typically, like for those who used to buy CDs, every CD had like a 2 second gap between
Yeah,
songs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. The
So it
skip
would take, and yeah. So this one doesn't.
didn't,
It just
yeah.
kind of goes straight into. So that build up that's there in the last couple of seconds straight slams you
Straight
into
slams you
parable,
into
and you're like,
parabola. Yeah.
oh,
You've got it bang on, my friend. That to me is one of the highlights too. I remember choosing parabole and parabola as for me it like to pump myself up for stuff, as like especially for my exams and stuff. I would like I was never one of those kids who needed to keep on revising till the last minute. And usually the morning of the exam, I would basically just do nothing except mentally prepare myself. As such, no studies, but listening to parabole and parabola to try and zone out and only increase focus. And then when parabola hits and you get that insane surge of energy and you go like,
yeah,
holy shit, I am one with the world is me. I am not going to feel any pain or and all of this is just an illusion. I know exactly what I have to do. That's
yeah,
what the song, that's how I've used the song a lot. And yeah, I think um, Parabole and Parabola is the highlight of the album for me today. Like, it's not Schism, it's not Lateralus, but it is Parabole and Parabola. They're such a strong pair of songs.
yeah. I agree, man. I mean, like listening back to it also, right? And you talked about remembering parts of the song again. I don't
Hmm.
think anyone who's heard Parable, even like once or twice, cannot like remember.
Yeah, it's again, yeah. Um, which is why probably Parabola was the second single.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes
right.
sense.
And the only other video from this album.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about the next track, which is Ticks and Leeches, aggressive as fuck. Probably um, a good track to listen to after you've heard Parabola, which is aggressive, but it's not like supremely aggressive. Ticks and Leeches is a bit more aggressive. Once again, it's a great song, but it's not a song that is an highlight as such of the album because everything else kind of overshadows it. It kind of falls into that place that the patient occupies, right?
yeah, and how do you follow up a song like Parabola, right? What do you kind of put in there that's gonna stick in people's head? So
Yeah.
I
So to
definitely,
any Tool fan that's listening, tell us why Ticks and Leeches deserves more praise.
yeah,
Yeah. Let's leave it at that.
cool. Come on, now let's get into the one because I know definitely you have an opinion on this. So
Ah.
this the title track Lateralus. Go for it, Animesh. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Okay, wait. Actually, I take that back. Wait, I'll add one thing. And I think this kind of sums up. I don't think I'll have to add a lot more. I feel this is easily the most analyzed rock metal song in recent time. And when I was looking at the lyrics, literally Maynard says, overthinking, over-analyzing
Analyzing
separates
separates
the
the
body from
body
the
from the
mind.
mind.
I think, like,
That was my go-to line, man. That was my go-to line.
but
Yeah.
I'm saying this, if I had to put those, Tool fanboys, like that's one line that Maynard has already
It's
described them.
so true. It's also the biggest life lesson, or one of the biggest life lessons from this album. uh what can I say about Lateralus, man? The first time I heard it, I enjoyed it as a song, but of course, because I'd come into it after reading that entire spiel about how Lateralus is, and it is, right? Like, you can spot the Fibonacci sequence in the lyrics, you can spot the entire thing about spiraling out, and the time signature 9 by 8, 8 by 8, 7 by 8, all of those facts, because they are facts. And when you come into a song heavily colored by the facts, and then you listen to the song, you are right. Yes, of course, the facts are right. The song has to be made this way, right? And if you were to think of it, it's like this, right? So sacred geometry, and allow me to get into this. um Sacred geometry is kind of a way to explain beauty and symmetry and stuff in the world, right? um what happens is, you can't really, like, you don't expect the Shah Jahan who built the Taj Mahal, right? You don't expect him to have been like, oh, you know what? I am measuring things the way sacred geometry is instructing me to, and which is why this minar should be this particular way, or this pillar should be this particular way, or the dome should be this particular way. You don't expect the guys who, the slaves rather, who built the pyramids, to have been instructed that, the angle has to be 55 point whatever degree that number is, right? But later on, when you start overthinking and overanalyzing all of this, and you put in the construct of sacred geometry, everything seemingly tends to make sense, right? So where I'm getting with this song is, it's such a great song, but if you come into it after having after having read the facts about how the song is and what all it's supposed to do, it kind of helps you understand what the song is trying to do. And I think that is one of the ways that the song stays with you, because you can't really explain subjective why you like a particular thing, right? Most of the time. um, and here is a way that you can talk about how great the song is. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, Lateralus, yes, fucking great song, but if you come into it just maybe without any context, you may still enjoy it, and you may not know why you enjoy it. But then when you're provided all this hype around it, and you read the facts, and you read the text, and you read the opinions, then you're like, holy shit, this is what makes the song special. I figured it out just like everyone else seems to have. And it's given me good enough reason to talk about it and tell everyone that I know that, hey, did you know this about this song?
You described like every Tool fan ever. But yeah, just adding to what you said, I mean, like, I love the solo on the track, and there's just so much happening in the track, right? Like, when I was going through it, I was like, wait, where did 9 minutes go?
Exactly. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the
It's an
beauty
excellent,
of it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, completely. It's a great track. Like, no matter if you listen, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. It's an excellent track, regardless of how you approach it. One of the highlights of the album, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we go on to the next track, I must mention and give a shout out to this band. And I think it's all thanks to you that I actually follow them. While looking up Tool tracks, right, live and all
Mm-hmm.
of that, I came across Brass Against. They did
Oh
a
yeah.
cover of both Lateralus as well as Parabola. So yeah, shout out to them. If you haven't checked it out, please go check it out.
Yeah, so
Stop what
Brass
you're doing.
Against, Brass Against is this lovely brass band that features a variety of vocalists. The main vocalist, or the one that pops up most frequently, is Sofia Arista, and oh my god, she's a phenomenal singer. Um, but more importantly, the band and her two fucking fantastic covers,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. So like
And
we were talking
yeah,
about bands trying to cover Tool, they do a
they do
really
a
good.
really good job of it. Yeah. Lateralus was also used to be covered by Koshish, right?
I can't remember.
I
I've only
think
watched
so.
one.
I think so.
I'm gonna check with the guys after this if they did.
Yeah, yeah. I remember them. I don't know why, but I remember them covering it when I saw them at their NH7 performance.
Let's jump into the next track.
Yup. Disposition. Disposition. I don't know if you would consider this an interlude or not. I don't. For me, it's a song. And I think by now, every Tool fan who's come into it, who were the OGs back from 1993 with the whatever the lyrics from Stinkfist are, but who've come into Tool from Undertow and Enema are going like, what the fuck is happening with this band? How are they suddenly going into this Pink Floydish kind of space? And why is this album not giving me pure aggression that Tool used to give me?
Yeah, and it's weird, right? Because I think that's a tabla or a dole, something like that. That's what
No,
I
it
think.
seems to be a tabla, but then again, I don't know if it's an actual tabla or if it's just triggers that Danny Carey uses, right?
Yeah, but it's
But
quite
it's fantastic usage of
yeah.
that sound and of what that instrument is supposed to represent, right?
No, definitely. I mean, I agree. Like it's kind of strange that this track comes in, and I feel like I'm glad they didn't kind of overdo it or try to make it like the fusion-y thing in there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's not like sitar metal, right? Like no offense to Rishabh Singh and what he's doing, but Disposition works beautifully because it's almost like a palate cleanser of sorts
yeah,
after Lateralus, and it flows beautifully into the next song, Reflection, which kind of continues similar percussive rhythm, etc. But now it's back onto traditional drums as much as possible. Like you don't hear the tabla as frequently, but in Reflection, towards the end of the song, you again hear some non-traditional rock instruments being used, right?
yeah.
Um,
I couldn't kind of place my finger
yeah,
on what
even
exactly.
I can't place my finger. So again, Tool fans, obviously we don't know what we're talking about. So feel free to yell at us. Um, and then Reflection moves into Triad, and this leads me to another point about this album is that uh, they you can break up this album into separate EPs,
Hmm.
right? By just bunching songs together, and it still flows beautifully. So for me, Disposition, Reflection, and Triad works beautifully as one section.
Yeah.
So you kind of end up listening to all three of them in succession. You can't really say, okay, I will only hear Disposition or I
Yeah,
will
probably
only
that's
hear
how they had
Reflection.
it on vinyl. So like, you know, one
Maybe,
side of the vinyl was this.
maybe, right? And this kind of a thought kind of flows throughout. Like you can take The Grudge and leave it aside. Then you listen to Eon Blue, Apocalypse, and The Patient together. Then you listen to, then what I used to do is listen to Mantra, Schism, Parabola together. You leave Ticks and Leeches aside as an individual song. You leave Lateralus aside as an individual song. You listen to Disposition, Reflection, Triad together. And then you fall asleep and you get woken up by Pipe de Oad. and the ridiculousness that is that sample, or that is that interlude, or yeah, the band have done it before, right? I think on Enema it ends with a Bill Hicks joke, or was that
Yeah,
Undertow? I can't
I
remember,
can't,
but
I
the
can't
band has
either.
done it before. But Fabe the Oad just takes that ridiculousness or a way of saying, man, this I don't know. There's a way to analyze it and say that this is a message that the band is leaving you, etc., and make you want to listen to
Yeah,
the album again. And there's another perspective which just says this is just a joke, and there are people who are considering both opinions and don't know which one to adhere to or which one to follow, or which one, or have their own unique opinion about it. But I
yeah,
really enjoy Fab Ad for some reason.
yeah. It's like this. So I was reading. It's actually like this Area 51. So some
Exactly, right?
call that the call into like Art Bell's radio show Coast to Coast on AM. And I was like, okay. I mean, I found it a very strange way to kind of end the album, but then hey, it's Tool, right? So they can get
Yeah, it's
away
a
with
strange
it.
way to end the album, but you remember it, and
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
beauty of it, right?
yeah,
And that's how the traditional album ends.
yeah. All right. So overall, Animesh, purely musically, would you say that Lateralus is a good album or a great album?
It's a fucking great album. I'd love to get Lateralus on an all A's with Anurag, and I would nominate Bhanuj and Hamza to be part of the episode as well. Again, shout out to Bhanuj and Hamza. Bhanuj is an excellent journalist, and Hamza, of course, is a fantastic drummer. And they, let's slot that as one of the episodes that we need to do.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I mean, we need to have like a good mix of fanboys and opinionated people on this
Exactly,
episode.
right?
You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
have all
yeah.
fanboys
You
on
can't
there.
have all fanboys, but having said that, Lateralus is a fucking great album.
Yeah.
It's it flows beautifully. Like, no matter if you listen to it in the traditional song format, or if you cut it up and listen to it in the divine format, or of the other, like there are like what, 4 or 5 ways apparently that you're supposed that you can listen to this album. Yeah, it's exactly like the various ways of watching Marvel Cinematic Universe movies,
Oh my God.
right? You can watch them in the order of release, you can watch them in the order of timeline, you can watch them whatever. Similarly with Literalis, you can cut up the songs and rearrange them, and it's all
Yeah.
supposed to give you enlightenment and stuff. But Peter,
I'm
good
doing
album
inverted
or a
commas.
great album?
I'd say it's a great album. I mean, and again, coming back to what I said earlier, right? This was released in 2001.
One. And the fact
Go,
that we're still talking about it, and the
yeah,
fact that we
and the
still
fact
listen
that,
to it.
yeah, I totally agree. And you know, let's be honest, unless you were like, I don't know anyone other than Tool fanboys who are looking forward to this album, right? Everyone was kind of uh, wearing backward caps and oversized T-shirt and jeans. That was the thing back then, right? We've all been there and done that. But one thing that really stood out for me, and going back to this album, is just like I said, the instrumentation. I mean, the
Yeah.
drums. I kind of also heard it at a time where I heard a lot of like poorly recorded programmed drums. So when you hear an
Hmm.
album like this, you're just like, whoa. And it kind of stands out for you, just like that drum sound, just the way that all the instruments, and I hate to use this cliche term, but all the instruments get like a chance to breathe, right? It's not
Yeah. So okay,
there.
cool. So let's quickly talk about, and this is an important point you raised, because this was a very weird episode for us to do, right? Or a very weird album talk, because we didn't get into musicality as such. We got into what the songs mean to us, or just opinions about the songs. But this is a great album because the instrumentation is fucking top notch. The lyrics are actually fucking excellent. They do a beautiful job of just giving you something to think about. The vocals are amazing. The bass is flawless. The guitar work is astounding, and the drumming is on another level. And yes, nothing is overpowering the other. uh, Production wise, it sounds great. The balance is spot on. The the way each instrument sounds is excellent. The usage of samples is excellent. The interludes do their job really well. It's it's a fucking great album, no matter if you listen to it as a Tool fan or if you're listening to it for the first time. This is an album that will make you go, like, what the fuck is this? And
Yeah.
also, it's an album that will make you go on first listen, there is something more to this and I have to listen to it again.
Yeah, it gives you like that kind of itch, right? That you just have to like keep scratching that.
It forces you to come up with a way to wrap it around your head. And
Yeah.
that's like an excellent takeaway from this kind of an album. It forces you to look at it in detail. You can't just listen to it like an Avril Lavigne song. It can't be played in the background.
Now I have that hook playing in my head thanks to you.
So that's Lateralus on the music front. Now we have to talk about the visual identity and appeal of Lateralus, because the album artwork, which is designed by Alex Gray, is fucking must own, not just by fans of the band, but by art lovers in general. Peter, why do you think that is?
Man, so I mean, I own the CD, so yeah, I can say
Me
this.
too. Me too. I
But
was
when
fucking like you found it in that Abu Dhabi shop. I finally found Lateralus in a shop in Singapore, and I was like, fucking holy shit. This is the holy grail.
yeah, and it's cool, right? When you kind of flip through the pages, how you have that
Yeah, it's
entire
it's
thing go.
the CD and the jewel case and everything that accompanies it is beautiful as fuck.
Now, see, I wish at that time, like, I knew about all these super editions or special
Exactly, right?
editions and all of that. Like, that's the time. I mean,
Or
when you're
had
in
the
college,
money to spend on it.
yeah, that was the second part. We were still in college back then. Like, I was just happy buying the CD. But yeah, man, it's definitely, and it's Alex fucking Gray, man. I mean, like, you want to own a piece of art that he's kind of done, and
I'm pretty sure Alex Gray, uh, Google searches as well as popularity has increased tenfold only because of Lateralus. You know, this album artwork kind of has become the visual identity for Tool, right? Like, even though you had 10,000 days, even though you had Fear Inoculum, if you see artwork like this, you automatically know it's Tool, and you automatically think of Lateralus. That's how iconic this album artwork and the visual identity of Lateralus is.
no, I definitely agree. I mean, like, of course, 10,000 Days has the gimmick, right? Where you had those glasses that you
Yeah,
kind of look
I
on
didn't
and all
enjoy
of
that.
that.
Yeah. I bought
But
it definitely, but I didn't enjoy it.
yeah, yeah. So with this, it's kind of cool. Like you want to flip through, but just when you look at it, right? I mean, it's
It's eye
really like,
catching.
yeah, like 20 years later, we're still talking about it. 20 years
Exactly,
later,
right?
if
Yeah,
anyone
yeah.
finds a CD, anyone listening to this finds a CD, go buy it, man.
Go buy it. Yeah, completely. Like, it's just beautiful art to own. Nothing else. Nothing
Yeah.
else. Right? And then obviously you can of course overanalyze it and find God written in
Yeah, at the
those
last.
layers.
Oh my
Okay.
god.
Okay, finally, after trying to be objective dicks, it's now time for the masala banter. And let me fire the opening salvo for this. Here's my hypothesis. Tools Lateralis, to me, marks the turning point for the band. Right? It's a great album, no doubt. But it's the album that ultimately soured my love for the band as well, to some degree, because it became too big and gave rise to the cult of Tool and to Tool fanboys. You know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, man. I don't know. So like, okay, I'll
Were
do
you a
an
Tool fanboy? Peter?
No, I've never been. So that's a problem, right?
I was,
But let me draw an analogy to this, in which is
which
kind
is
of
weird. Like, I think it's one of the only few bands that I used to be a huge fanboy of, and now, yes, I still do care about them, but I'm not a conventional stereotypical Tool fanboy anymore. Thank God I'm not.
so. Let me draw an
It's
analogy.
fucking cringy.
Uh, Slayer fans, right? I mean, like everyone heard it in, I think it was Global Metal or Headbanger Metal.
Slayer fans are different, yeah. They're not
I'll tell
Tool
you why.
fans.
So the reason why I said is, right. Slayer fans, I can do it because they don't actually go down to the level of like, oh my god, you heard that song, you know what he's playing, Kerry King is the best. Oh my god,
I
this.
don't know anybody who can fucking try and analyze a Kerry King solo.
But I'm saying, like, everyone is, and actually, I did come across somebody who isn't a Slayer fan recently, but you don't have like Slayer has one of those rabid followings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't
Slayer
have,
does, Iron Maiden does, Lamb of
yeah.
God does, Metallica does, almost
Oh my
every
god, Lamb of
popular.
God fans.
Yeah, but then again, Lamb of God fans won't
Yeah.
won't shove the fact that they're Lamb of God fans down your throat and then say that there's no other music or there's no other band on earth that does a better job of composing music.
So here's a question, huh? And this is like pistol to your head or shotgun to your head, whatever you want it.
Sure.
Choose. And now this is as a former Tool fanboy.
Huh.
Choose vegan or Tool fanboys.
I'd still take fucking Tool fanboys because at least there's some common ground to talk with about them, right? Uh, okay. So I want to bring back and I want to talk about gimmicks, right?
Okay.
Uh, it dawned on me after probably reading a Maynard interview where he essentially said that I enjoy all that's being discussed about the band and about who we are, but we don't give a fuck about it, right? And that day after reading that interview, I was like, hmm, was this all just a calculated move? And I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is the
Think of
whole.
it as a marketing case study, Peter. Isn't Lateralus and
Oh, it's a
all the
great
talk
one.
that goes about it, isn't like, can't that find a place in, I don't know, uh, shit, who wrote the four P's? I forgot
Cot-
his name. Kotler,
Kotler.
yeah. Can't it
Oh, yeah.
find a place in Kotler's book?
If not in Kotler's book, it certainly is in the Horns Up case study book that we'll make.
Yeah, right. Definitely. Oh my God, that's an idea. But yeah, like
I,
just talking pure hype and talking pure appeal and popularity, Lateralus blows everything away. And a lot of it is to do with, of course, all the context and facts about the album that you're supposed to know. And a lot of it has to do with Tool fans who will continuously keep reminding you that you have to know all this shit.
yeah, like all the hate we're gonna get after this episode goes live.
Yeah, it's
But
it's like it's I'll tell you what, it's like have you met the rabid Harry Potter fans? No offense to Harry Potter fans, again, or no offense to Sherlock fans, no offense to um, comic book nerds. Okay, and I'm saying this with an open heart. I love the fact that you guys pour over all the details, but you know, most of those fan bases know that it's not the end of the world. Tool fanboys think Tool are the fucking end of the world, and that's what pisses me off, and that's what makes me cringe hard as fuck because I used to be exactly right that
I'm,
Maynard could do no wrong. The
I'm so
Tool
glad I
man
didn't
could
meet you
do
then,
no
huh?
wrong. I wouldn't no. So here's the thing. I wouldn't maybe keep on voicing it and throwing it in your ear, but yes, dude, half my college projects were rip-offs or inspired by Tool songs. I did a photo essay on Vicarious. I did a photo essay on Lateralus. I used to do talks about sacred geometry where I used to end the talk with Lateralus. And then, yeah, like all of that jazz. I used to If Tool was a church, I could be ordained a minister and go out and be sent out to convert people.
Now,
And
now,
then thank God I read that interview, and thank God, um, I don't know, that I snapped out of it,
yeah.
because yeah,
I think, Tool, of course, it's a marketing thing. The reason why they maintain that air of mystery, they didn't kind of do all of that, was all a calculative thing. I
yeah,
mean, in a day, like, look at today's day and age, right? Where you have every band putting up every little thing on an Instagram story or TikTok or what have you.
Tool doesn't do it.
Yeah. That's not a Tool thing. And the appeal of coming back to Lateralis, right? Going back to when Fear Inoculum, in the build-up of them being released, you had all the music being uploaded on streaming. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
I
the
mean,
internet lost its shit. It literally.
exactly, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So don't get us wrong, especially Tool fanboys. Don't get us wrong. It's a great album. It's not the fucking best album in the world, because everyone has their own the fucking best album in the world.
Okay, now, so let's do the toughest part of this episode, I'd say.
I thought that was the fucking toughest part of it. Like getting all of that off my chest. I'm feeling relieved.
Okay, so then, we've spoken about this album. Let's wrap up the chat with one final question.
Okay.
Animesh,
Uh-huh.
is Lateralis Tool's best album? And the second question, where do you rank it in the band's discography?
Hmm. It's not the album by Tool that I've heard the most. And you'll be surprised to know which album that is.
I already know the answer. Don't say it.
Yeah, but our listeners or whoever's listening need to know. I've now heard Fear Inoculum and crazy amount of times, probably more than Enema, Undertow, Lateralus, or 10,000 Days. Lateralus to me, and I'll tell you why also, but that Fear Inoculum thing needs to be a separate episode on its own, right?
Yeah, that's been in the pipeline for a while now.
Yeah, Lateralus to me is a fucking great album. For me, it's not the band's best album. Um, I still like, after having said what I said about Enema, I still think Enema is a better album overall. I think Fear Inoculum is a fucking great album. But yeah, I don't go back and spin Lateralus a lot like I used to before.
So
So
come on.
at this point in time, I think it's probably my third favorite Tool album in
Okay.
order of rank as such. And it's not
What's
Tool's
one and
best.
two? What's one and
First
two?
first one being Enema, second one being Fear Inoculum. Yeah, fucking fight me on that.
Oh boy.
This is like a call to war, right? But I don't mind if people, like, I wouldn't lose my shit if someone says Lateralus is Tool's best album, or if objectively someone comes out with the way and says Lateralus is Tool's best album, because it is a fucking great album. It's just not my favorite Tool album anymore. Yeah,
I like you
the
added that.
anymore is no, the anymore is essential, because when Fear Inoculum came out, right? Um, I didn't enjoy it a lot, but over the last 2 years, yeah, there you have it. My listens tell the story. What about you, Peter? Is Lateralus Tool's best album, and where do you rank it in the band's discography?
Uh, so my rankings, and this is like as of today,
Yeah, of
because
course. Yeah, it's all
it keeps
subjective at the end
changing.
of the day, right? Yeah.
Uh, I have it tied as the best with 10,000 Days. And that's just me personally. Just, I've heard
Oh,
the
you're
album.
one of those guys, huh? Who likes
Yeah.
10,000 Days.
Yeah. Because that's the first album I heard by Tool. So can't
I
kind of.
completely get that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then right below it, because there's no way for me to objectively keep Anima and Undertow separate, because again I heard those all at the same time. So Anima and Undertow are right after that.
Hmm.
So
I'll
and
have to get you to give your inoculum a chance.
yeah, and that's what I was thinking. Like when we were listening, when I was listening to this episode, I mean, I actually listened back to our episode that we did, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
were we being too harsh? Let's go
Yes, we
revisit the album.
probably were. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, I think that's something we should do sometime this year, before another Tool album comes out for sure.
I was actually waiting for 10,000 days to pass after Fear Inoculum's release
Oh God.
before bringing it up. But yeah, whatever. I'm definitely pleased to have that chat.
Awesome.
So that's it. We've spent an inordinate amount of time on an album that we appreciate and love, right? No two ways about it. You love this album at some level, don't
Oh
you?
yeah, yeah. Of course. I mean, that's why it's kind of tied right now with
Yeah.
10,000 Days.
And it's also an album that, yes, we love to hate at times.
Well, that's us.
Are there any other albums you'd like us to chat about, dear listeners? Or hear something even better? Why not suggest an album and we'll think about getting you on the pod to chat with us and dissect it. Answer us. We're online at honsapod.com or on Twitter at honsapod. As always, I'm on Twitter at AsmoAmi.
I'm at Trend Crusher.
And this is Horns Up.
Horns up, guys.
Stay safe, stay well. Listen to Tool, but do not think of Tool as the fucking God's gift to mankind.
Listen to Tool and spiral out. That's my last word.
Keep going. Keep going.